This meeting to order. Mr. Griffin, would you lead us in the flag salute?
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sunshine Law Statement. All requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act have been met for this meeting of the Board of Education of the Borough of Oradell. Notice of this meeting was filed with the Record and Town News and all persons requesting such notice. Mr. Darian, would you read the mission statement?
Yes, the Oradell Public School District is dedicated to the ongoing pursuit of educational excellence through comprehensive innovative curriculum and instruction. The district is committed to providing opportunities for social, emotional, and academic discovery to foster curiosity, courage, and character. Our goal is to prepare our students to become lifelong learners who are self-directed, resilient, productive, and responsible citizens.
Thank you. Roll call.
Mr. Griffin?
Here.
Mrs. Levy?
Here.
Mrs. Moran? Mrs. Shapiro?
Here.
Mrs. Walker?
Here.
Mr. Walsh? Dr. Wesley? Mr. Darian?
Here.
President Nichols?
Here, open to the public for agenda items only. Okay, not seeing any. We will move forward to the superintendent's report.
Okay, to begin with, at our previous meeting when we did the presentation on testing results from last year, I had also mentioned that we would be following up with some comparative data showing how Oradell performed in relation to other districts in Bergen County. And so in order to do that, I'm going to ask our principal, Ms. Bozios, to come up and share some of that information.
Just to clarify, when I do this, I'm not acting as principal, I'm acting as district testing coordinator. Okay, so for the past 4 years, I have been giving this presentation where we look at the district factor group, specifically the district factor group I in Bergen County. And we know that our factor groups are created based on cost of home, annual income of family, and education status. So what happens is, around every November, the state puts a big spreadsheet on its website. It looks a little bit like this. This is third grade language arts. It is 18 columns long and 25,000 rows deep. It's one subject and one grade level. And I culled through that data to pull out the 21 districts in the Bergen County I. Now, the state's made that task a little more difficult because they actually no longer believe district factor group is anything anyone should talk about. So they've stopped putting on here the district factor group for each district. So they've promised that next year they will come out with a different way to compare. However, I do understand that for us, the easiest variable is our neighbors. And so our neighbors in this case are those 21 districts, okay? And they are the same 21 districts we've used for a while. Now, if the state was actually to do this analysis again, some of them may move down to GH districts and some of them might move up to J districts. For example, Glen Rock was an I district for many years. And in the last reshuffle, they became a J district. I think if we actually looked right now, River Edge may actually be considered a GH district. So those are the districts that we used for our comparison. However, I'm always stuck each year about whether or not to just use the district, because we're a district, but we're also a school. River Edge is one district with 2 schools. And while I want to know how we compare to the district, I'm always on the search for, is there a school that is doing something so well that I'm curious about it? And it's not so well in one year, because that can be based on a cohort. It's someone who's doing something well year after year after year, because I'm curious what that is. So that's why I've continued to do both the district analysis and a school analysis. So this slide shows you the district analysis of our students' performance on the NJSLA in 18-19, but also in every year prior that they took a state test. So this column on the right is our 18-19 performance. So you'll see that our third graders scored better than 45% of the districts in the Bergen County I in language arts, which means they had a passing rate higher than 45% of the other districts. You'll see the same thing in fourth grade, that our fourth graders scored better than 90% of the districts. That number before it is that same cohort. It's that same group of students. How did they do in fourth grade? Because that's what we're always looking for. We always want to see growth for the cohort. That tells us that not only are we keeping up, but we're doing better than our peers, because that cohort is that cohort across the entire Bergen County. This score right here, this 3 out of 21, I don't know if it made it onto the patch or not, but was actually the reason that we were in the paper this weekend, where in Bergen County, at least 90% of fourth graders in Cresskill, Oradell, Saddle River, and Closter earned passing marks in English. One of our staff members was so excited about that, she texted it to me at 7 a.m. on Saturday morning. Well, I was very excited, not quite at that time. So as I said, I don't always like to just look at the district performance. I also do like to look at the school performance. So the next slide is our school performance, remembering, of course, that the number of schools in the Bergen County I reduces as the grades go up. So for example, in Mawa, I think there are 2 schools that are K-3 schools, but there's only 1 school that's a 4 or 5 school. So that's why the denominator changes. There's 38 schools in the Bergen County I that have a 3rd grade, but there are only 35 that have 4th, 35 that have 5th, and only 23 that have 6th. Actually, Oradell and Park Ridge, River Edge and Park Ridge, I think, are the only 2 that have more than 1 6th grade school. We then look at the data the same way in math. And while our results are not as high as they are in language arts, there's a positive trend. Look at our current 6th graders. They went from doing better than 40%, doing better than 30%, but now doing better than 50% of the district factor group. That's a really interesting cohort. You as a board in your packets also got the complete analysis of every school and every district's results. That specific cohort, while they only did better than 50%, their scale score is the 2nd in the Bergen County I. They have some really high achieving students that pulled up that scale score, even though their passing wasn't as high. And once we've done that,
Can you explain that again? I'm sorry,
Sure.
I don't know if I completely understand.
okay, so what happens is, we're a pretty small cohort, right, compared to a Ramsey or a Tenafly for that matter. So if we have students that are really high achieving, okay, and we may have students that are right below passing, okay, we may not have the highest number of passing, but we have a higher percentage of really bright students who are scoring high. So my guess is if we looked at that cohort, you will see more students who exceeded the expectation than most schools in the county. They're very unique. They're actually our largest gifted and talented population, but they're also in the school our largest number of struggling students. They completely do not defy a bell curve. They're here and they're here with very little in the middle, which is why our differentiation is so important, because if we teach to the middle, no one in that cohort is getting what they need. We do the same thing then looking at the schools in mathematics, and you'll see the same trend of positive growth. Really exciting here for me, knowing that we implemented a brand new math resource last year, is this 6th grade performance. Typically, the first year you implement a new math resource, you don't see high gains. And so that was something that was very standout for us. We then tried to find a way to look at our special ed performance. This became really difficult because the state doesn't give us the subgroup that we want, per se. We can look at it through the students that receive modifications, although some of those students might be English language learners or might have a 504, which doesn't mean they get any special services. They might just get extended time. And we didn't think that was a fair comparison. So we chose to use students with disabilities, even though we knew that in that group is included students who only receive speech services. Our thinking was that as long as that's the same population in every Bergen County I district, then it's probably about the same percentage of students who are classified with just speech-only services. So what does this all mean? Well, as I told the staff, what this really means is that we have so much to be proud of. When we look, and I don't do this every year because statistically it's a significant amount of work, but every once in a while, and I think the last time I did it was Dr. Ansell's first year here, I try to calculate a full district passing rate, which means I take the students that the total number of students in the grade level, the percentage that scored a 4 or a 5, I calculate that number, I add it together for all 4 grade levels to try to calculate that district passing percentage. Because as important as it is to us that we drill down and we notice where we're doing well and we notice where we need to get better, the fact is we are one community. And we do also have to celebrate our growth as one community. And so when I did this, what I learned was that there are only 3 districts in the Bergen County I that are scoring a higher passing rate than us. And I know immediately you want to know who they are. They are Allendale, Alpine, and Englewood Cliffs. In math, yes, we are not performing as well. But the truth is we weren't in the middle a few years ago. And so we are in an upward trend there as well. And so last year was about peace, love, and Panther pride. It was about not only looking at what is everybody else doing, but also looking at what are we doing, being proud of who we are as a community, and celebrating that. This year is about moving forward together. So that's the district goal you set, and that's how we move towards it. Most of moving towards that district goal has to do continuing our work on differentiated instruction, making sure that we're identifying where every student has a strength and every student has an area to strengthen, and making sure we're giving them instruction in that area. Not because it's the fraction unit and they need to learn adding fractions, but because you need to in 4th grade learn adding fractions. That's what our report cards are about. Growing towards the standard, and that's what we're working in our classrooms to make sure that we're consistently aware of what a student needs to know at the end of the year. What does the NJSLA assess, and how are we going to get each and every student there? So do you have any questions for me?
Any questions? Mrs. Walker?
I guess just to comment, amazing the amount of work that went into this, Ms. Bozios. I mean, unbelievable. And what we've been asking for, too, comparing cohorts and schools and so on. And to your point, I think the size of the school and the group and the number of students. So, and this is just from experience, when you look at Alpine, they're always way up there. But if you look at the 6th grade math class, there maybe are 14 kids in the whole 6th grade, and there will be 3 math groups and 2 teachers within those 16 students. So not to fault them, my dear friends, if I'm sure they're not tuned in to me here, but again, that means a lot, that individualization. So I think it's been great, the improvement we've seen. And math, when we first look at the scores in math, you say, oh my goodness, they're not up there with language arts. But we've had the new math program and significant improvement with 6th grade with the new book, the new program we had just last year. So again, I think it's great. I'm sorry Mr. Walsh isn't here to.
I'm sure I'll hear about it. And have a
But
private.
be ready. But thank you again, and thank all the teachers and administration for supporting this. We are proud. I am very proud.
I appreciate the analysis. Assessments are a difficult subject, It's just part of the overall educational process, and all this focus on doing well on assessments, can lead to stress and so on and so forth. But, at the end of the day, we're a similar school to the other schools in our surrounding areas, and I think it's important that we measure ourselves against them, and the fact that we're doing this is a great thing. And these are some tough communities that we're measuring against, and we're doing well. And so from that perspective, I'd like to commend, the work and the efforts that everyone's doing here. We could always improve, but I challenge you to let us know what you need to, one, achieve some of these goals that we've set out, and two, create some stretch goals, because as a board, we're fairly far removed from the latest in educational technologies, and as things develop, I would like you to challenge us, and I feel that we would rise to the occasion and give you what you need. So
The biggest challenge, Mr. Darian, is time. The fact is, when I was hired at Oradell Public School, you gave me one goal: raise language arts test scores. You were very clear about that from my
Right.
first interview on. I've succeeded in achieving that goal.
You have.
The difference is that now we're working on math, but we're also working on SEL, and we're working on technology integration, and I'm not saying that any of that is wrong and all of that is good.
Right.
But the fact is, it's a lot harder to focus, so it may take us a little longer to reach a goal because our efforts are spread out a little bit more right now.
Okay. Yeah, I'm done.
So, I've been coming here for a long time. I remember when you were hired, and I remember those language arts scores, and I kept thinking, our kid's getting a pretty good education here. I can't figure out why we're not up there either. And on one hand, I really don't care what the scores are because they're human beings, they're not numbers. But at the same time, I felt conflicted because we're just as good as these other towns, and this is a really good school. I was blown away when I was reviewing this in my packet over the weekend, seeing all of I remember when we were at the bottom of all of those rankings, in the middle and the bottom, and to see these upward trends. So I'm so proud, really, and, they're still kids, and we still treat them like individuals and individualize as much as possible, but, and I hope that, we are not, I know that we are not teaching to the test. We are teaching children, and if they learn, they will do well anyway. But this really great job to everybody, administration, the teachers, the kids who are plugged in. This is wonderful, and I really do think John Walsh would be proud. I know, I'm really proud. This is really nice, so thank you.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I know that I was one that requested for the I cohort, so I'm glad to see that. And I'm a firm believer that test scores are important, but also as a bad test taker myself, I understand that kids are so much more than that, and seeing these results and seeing the wonderful upward trend that we're taking, and also realizing that we're taking the steps for our social emotional learning and everything else that we're doing, I'm confident that as both a parent and a board member that our kids are going to be okay. And I know that I commend the administration, I commend the teachers and everybody else and the students for their commitment. And I think that this is great results. And I think this is, and also taking into account everything else that we're doing for students, I'm happy to see them. So thank you.
Anything from you? Do you have anything to say? I have just one thing to say. I've been here a long time.
I know.
I'm not going to say it.
Thank
I
you.
give you all the credit.
Thank you.
And the admins, and our teachers. Honestly, amazing.
Somebody get that in a gift. We gotta save that. That's never happened here at a board meeting.
No, it just makes me, it's a lot of pressure for next year.
Next year.
So you can see that.
No,
I'll be
but
one of
really,
Mr.
like,
Darian's views tomorrow.
one of the things, and
You're going to subscribe?
this is one of the things I
I'm not
had
giving
said
credit
at
for
the candidate night, the PTA candidate night. One of the parents was talking to me after she asked me about the test scores and whatnot, and I think I've mentioned this to Jeremy before. These are amazing, but if they weren't amazing, the difference now in this school compared to when I first came on the board is that I know our principal and our admins are looking at it. So I'm not that concerned that, okay, third grade, what, I know they're on it. So like in the past, we never had that comfort level, I feel, that scores were being analyzed. So this is amazing. Too bad Mr. Walsh isn't here.
We can have a private session.
We'll have to get him to log on to YouTube.
Okay, I have just a couple other things. So additionally, I wanted to also mention that at our last meeting, Mr. Griffin had asked about the New Jersey School Board's mental health report. So after our meeting, we got a hold of a copy that we sent out to everyone. In the process of sending it out, I also found out from New Jersey School Boards that one of their staff members who was part of the mental health task force that created the report was available to do presentations to boards. So his name is Vincent DeLucia, and we were able to schedule his visit to our board meeting on March 11th to come to talk about school board's mental health report. So I thought that you might like to have the follow-up to be able to talk to them directly about what's in the report. So we'll list that as a meeting highlight on our website, too.
I was just gonna say.
In addition, I also wanted to just let the board know that under administrative items, that there are several HIB reports that you're being asked to accept, and then at our next meeting, there will be a separate vote to affirm the results. And in addition, you're also being asked to approve the annual renewal of our Uniform Memorandum of Agreement with law enforcement. That's one that is given to us by the State Attorney General and the New Jersey State Department of Ed. And then lastly, I wanted to report that our enrollment, total student enrollment as of November 30th, 2019 was 764, and the student attendance rate for the month of November was 96.45. And that concludes my report.
So I just have one other question on the testing report. Mrs. Walker, how is Alpine not considered a J district? How is Alpine considered I? It's unbelievable. It's $20 million houses. So we take them out, we look even better. All right, business administrator's report.
Thank you, Mrs. President. So typically, during this meeting, we would have a public presentation or an update on the comprehensive annual financial report from our district auditors, but at this meeting, we're not going to have that due to new guidance for the reporting of post-employment benefit plans. The report is going to be delayed a little bit, so we hope to have the auditors in for our exit conference sometime next week. And it also pushes back the CAFA report as well as the audit summary application due to the state to the date of December 23rd. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. We'll move to minutes. We have the review of November 13th. Any comments or questions, please email Mr. Momora. We have approval of October 30th. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the minutes of October 30th.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Shapiro. Any questions? Call the question.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mrs. Levy?
Yes.
Mrs. Norton? Mrs. Shapiro?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh? Dr. Westlake? Mr. Darian?
I have a couple of minor edits, but other than that, I'm fine. Thank you.
President Nichols?
Yes. Committee reports, administrative items. Mr. Darian, would you take those too?
Yes. I'm sorry, where are we at?
Administrative A1.
I'd like to introduce items A1, A2.
Any questions? Oh, I need a
have a question.
second. Sorry, I need a second. Second by Mr. Shapiro. Any questions, Mr. Griffin?
This is a question about the last vote, actually, so it's more of a point of order. Mr. Darian mentioned that he had edits, but we voted to approve. I'm wondering if his edits are being placed or not.
If he's going to make edits, then we're going to have to present them and vote again.
Okay.
But they
I
passed
just-
for tonight.
Okay, that's what I wanted to figure out.
This is just a comment. After reading over all those HIB reports, it's amazing the time that's spent on those. It's just an aside that, again, they're so detailed and I guess rightfully so and state mandated so. Is that state mandated or federal? State. But anyway, just an aside that,
A lot of work.
a lot of work on the part of admin to do that. So I'm sure they're
It's the
shaking their
holidays.
head
Everyone's freaking
behind
out.
me. Anyway,
Time for a break at school.
yeah.
Okay, any other questions on A1 or A2? Call the question.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mrs. Levy?
Yes.
Mrs. Norton? Mrs. Shapiro?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh? Dr. Westlake? Mr. Darian?
Yes.
President Nichols?
Yes, Buildings and Grounds, Mr. Darian?
Yes, before I introduce my items, I'd like to discuss, we had a subcommittee meeting on the 3rd, and the minutes are in your packet. Since that time, there's been some minor developments, but nothing major to report, and we'll probably have another subcommittee meeting before the end of this year, and you'll receive notes on those. With that, I'd like to introduce items B1 and B2. I'm sorry, and B3.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Walker. Any questions? Call the question.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mrs. Levy?
Yes.
Mrs. Norton? Mrs. Shapiro?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh? Dr. Westlake? Mr. Darian?
Yes.
President Nichols?
Yes, curriculum, Mrs. Noreen is not here. I know the curriculum meeting was canceled tonight. Mrs. Walker, anything to report? No, right. Finance Technology, Mrs. Shapiro.
No report other than finances meeting next week, and we'll review the audit and start with the budget process. We've reviewed the timeline, and we're going to get started on that for next year. This evening, I would like to make a motion to approve items D1 through D9.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Walker. Any questions?
I have one comment.
Go ahead.
You'll see items D8 and D9 to donations from the PTA mini grants for wonderful programs, the Prismatic Laser Light Show and Outrageous Pets. And those are really fun, and I'm sure the kids really enjoyed it. And we thank the PTA for their efforts to bring us those programs.
Let's hold on one second. Did we get a copy of the treasurer's report? Did we get that or no? The one we're approving? Am I staring at it?
That was emailed and sent home in the packet.
Okay, I didn't see it in my packet, I just was looking for it on my email. Okay.
Which,
Did you get it? Oh, there it is. Never mind, I didn't see it. I just wanted to look at one thing. Is this in a different format this time? 209, where's my balance? Okay, I'll assume it balances, and you can show me later. This one here. Where do I tie into? I don't see it tied. We can go over it later.
Okay.
I'm assuming it's correct.
That'll tie to the board secretary.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Okay, any other questions? Call the question?
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mrs. Negan?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams? Mrs. Shapiro?
yes, but abstain on D8 and D9 because I chair those committees. That committee.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Wall? Dr. Wesley? Mr. Darian?
Yes.
President Nichols?
Yes, we'll skip delegate report. Oh, no, you went, right? That
I
was-
did go.
That was after our last meeting.
I don't remember if we talked about it or
Yeah,
not.
no, it was after, so go ahead. Mr. Griffin went this time.
Yeah, so Mr. Walsh was going to come too, but something happened. I did attend, there was one resolution that was covered. It was related to the 2% cap. Some of the funding for districts, I think it's S2 is the policy thing that went through that ended up getting some districts that had been underfunded extra money, and people who were getting overfunded, they got less money. And that's been an issue at the delegate assembly for a while now. The last meeting, it was a big issue. This meeting, there was a resolution that a district had gone to referendum because they had received less money because of S2, and their referendum didn't pass, but they weren't able to meet their budget requirements. So they were requesting that the New Jersey School Board Association support them being able to access money over the 2% cap. That resolution did pass. It was a close vote. Our vote on it was no. I was in contact with the president and vice president about what they thought about the issue, but it passed as a big majority. Senator Sweeney was also there to update us on some of the things going on at the legislators. They are going to be funding, they want to fund extraordinary special education at 100% over the years coming up. Each year they're going to be giving more money towards that. And he was in full support of the resolution, so that fix is going to happen fast in the legislation.
I have a question.
Sure.
So, as it relates to going out for question on your budget, normally the state law requires if you exceed your 2% cap, you have to go out to the voters for a vote.
Correct.
And they could reject your budget or approve it. And, you know, apparently if there's a need that the community believes in, then they can exceed the 2%. This law or this bill that they're introducing?
Yeah, so this is merely a resolution within the delegate assembly that then pushes what the NJSBA has as a policy position on what they're going to push at the state level.
So they're looking to push a law that would allow a school district to exceed the 2% without having to go out for a vote.
In extenuating circumstances.
Right,
So
and
it was very specific. This was specific to when the state had been funding at a certain level
Right.
and then funds less,
Right.
they can go out.
Right, so as
Not required that they do.
as the state funding formula shifts and some districts receive less money, this is an added avenue for them.
Correct.
It's just that if the state feels for whatever reason that you've been receiving too much money, this may allow you to continue that behavior.
Yes, I mean, That may be the case. I think that they would argue that they still needed the funds. This seems to be isolated a little bit to certain regions of the state. A little bit more downstate are being affected by this. Some of it has to do with property values going down because of, storms and things like that. But they're in tight spots. I don't think it's right for everyone, but the delegate assembly felt like the bill was needed to help those districts that need it.
Okay.
Anything else?
No,
Good,
that's
right?
it. It was a fine update. Good.
Was there a second part to it? Wasn't there something else? That was the first one.
Tabled it, right?
Oh, they tabled something, right, to go back to the Finance Committee?
Right.
Yeah, so there was another issue that is going to go back to the
Okay.
Finance Committee, but there wasn't a,
All right, good job representing us.
you're welcome.
Personnel, Mrs. Walker.
Yes, I'd like to present F1, but before that, in your packet, you have the meeting minutes from November 14th that are in there, and then we just met again this evening, and we're still discussing the calendar for 2021, and there were a couple of personnel things that we're discussing that will be in your upcoming minutes, okay? And also, before I present F1, sadly, I see Mrs. Rishardi is going to be retiring, and that's a big loss, but going to wish her well, and I'm sure we're going to have many musical retirement parties for her. So, with that said, I'd like to present F1.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Darian. Any questions?
Oh, I have a question. You mentioned that you guys started to review the calendar for next year. When do we all get to look at that?
Next meeting, it'll be out.
Okay. Thank you.
We're going to vote on it next meeting, I believe, right? At the reorgs.
So we'll get it in the draft.
Fine-tune it.
The school, is the school calendar for, yeah. That's early for us, right? Good job. Okay.
And we're trying to adhere and look to Riverdale's calendar too. With that, we're keeping that in mind as we generate our calendar.
Any other questions? Call the question.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mrs. Levy?
Yes.
Mrs. Norton? Mrs. Shapiro?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh? Dr. Wesley? Mr. Darian?
Yes.
President Nichols?
Yes, policy, Mrs. Levy.
Yes, thank you. You have minutes from our November 25th meeting in your packet, and we'll be meeting again on Monday, the December 16th. I'm happy to offer G1 today, which is our updated policy manual for the 2019-2020 school year, as well as G2, which is the first reading of the policy and regulations for fundraising, memorials and dedication, and money in school buildings. I'd also like to mention that, as you'll see in our notes from the meeting, or the minutes from the meeting, is that we did finalize and get approval by the school doctor about the parents over-the-counter authorization form. And that should be distributed to parents shortly after break so that they will have the option to fill out the form so that certain over-the-counter medications can be given to their students with their knowledge during the school day, which I know is something that the policy committee has been working on for some time. And with that, I offer G1. I don't believe that we need to offer G2, correct?
Yeah, we should take out the motion below it, and you're just really moving G1.
That's correct, G1.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Second by Mrs. Walker. Any questions? This is the first reading, so if anybody didn't read the policies, you can email the Mrs. Levy, Chair. Any questions? Call the question.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mrs. Levy?
Yes.
Mrs. Norton? Mrs. Shapiro?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh? Dr. Wesley? Mr. Darian?
Yes.
President Nichols.
Yes, Public Relations, Mr. Griffin?
Yes, we met recently and went over, again, the idea of the district consolidation. I got some extra information whenever I was at the Delegate Assembly meeting. Senator Sweeney, I asked specifically, we've seen these list of districts that are listed as people that are targeted for consolidation, and how do we get a seat at the table? He was very clear with his answer that he has no list, and he feels very comfortable that as of right now, as I mentioned at the last meeting, there is not going to be any forced consolidation. This is going to be optional. I felt his answer was good, so as far as a strategy on what we're going to need for that, I don't think that there is a long-term strategy for it. Just stay on top of it, and if we want to get ahead of it, we still have the option, and as he said at the Delegate Assembly, to drive the bus a little bit if we want to do, there is money available for those research studies on feasibility of this type of thing. That would be the way to get a seat at the table, but that's only if we want to go down that route. Other things for public relations, we are still in the process of writing up what an award would be. We're wanting to do a Panther Pride Award once a year related to courage, curiosity, and character. And we're writing up what we think are possible ways that would happen. And the plan is to run that by the administration to see if they have suggestions and things like that. We'll get it back to you after that's done. The last thing that's still open-ended really is the climate survey results, and Mrs. Levy is exploring some options on results and next steps on how we'll further our analysis of that.
Thank you. My district, Dr. Westlake is not here. Open to the public? Okay, we'll move to old business, new business. Either one of you.
You go first, Rita.
I neglected to say it in my personnel report, but just to welcome our new payroll clerk, Melissa Ramirez, to the office. And I think we're full staff down there, and Mr. Mamora is doing a fantastic job, and he's down there till all hours, so thank you for that. So it's good to see new faces and everybody working very hard.
Thank you.
Okay, so I have old, new, doesn't matter what it is. I have two comments. One, today I stopped by to deliver pizza, and it was with the Holiday Boutique. You shrunk the lunchroom, all the schedules got changed, and what could have been really chaotic was a very well-oiled machine, and I was really impressed with how the lunch went today. And as I walked by the gym, Ms. Maela and Mr. Kelly were like, there was an entire grade in the gym, and they were all cheering and having the best time, and everybody made, the best of I think what's a little difficult situation when the PTA takes one of the rooms. So good job to everybody for making a smooth lunch. And the second thing was the choral concert that I attended last night, and I've been coming to these for many, many years, and I'm usually pretty stressed, and it's another thing I have to do. But I wrote Ms. Ricciardi a note, and I wanted to share it with everybody because this is how I felt. Dear Ms. Ricciardi, just wanted to let you know that last night was probably absolutely my favorite choral concert of OPS of the last 11 years. I was so impressed with the complexity of some of the songs, especially for the fourth graders. And I've never heard a meow song that was really fun and unique. I could feel everyone's enthusiasm, and I completely disconnected from my very stressful last few days. And while all the Shapiros will be out of OPS in June, it's hard to imagine OPS without you. As I mentioned, even Amanda was stunned by the news, as she has many fond memories with you as well. And and then I wished her well, that's it. So it was a really beautiful, well-executed concert. Everybody was relaxed and having fun, and I love seeing that and being part of it. Thank you.
Any other old or new business?
I have one old business and two new business. The first thing I wanted to say was thank you to Dr. Ansel for following up on the mental health report. I'm really excited about that, and I really appreciate you taking the time to set that up. That's the old business. The new business, I went to the legislative committee meeting recently for New Jersey School Board Associations. Two things that we should keep in mind. Next year, they're doing the census. The census matters to us because it affects a lot of things. So ensuring that as leaders in our community, we're encouraging people to completely fill that out, including anyone who lives in their anyone that lives in their household. It's going to be important for us to play a role somehow in that. So that's something to think about. The other thing that was at the legislative committee, there was a great presentation on vaccines and also vaping and some of the problems that are going on with that. I think our school does a great job of ensuring that people are becoming vaccinated, so that's a good thing. Vaping continues to be an issue. They're seeing the trend in New Jersey actually go younger and younger. They even had 10-year-olds that they're seeing in some places using vaping, and the effect of that nicotine on their young brain is very horrible. So it's something to keep watch on. The data from this meeting showed that there were certain counties that it was being reported at a higher incidence than others, but it's unclear if that's because of certain things going on in that county or if those hospitals are actually recording that code higher. Either way, something we need to keep mindful of.
One other quick thing on that line is Rotary is sponsoring a Narcan training on January 16th at Riverdale High School in the auditorium. And it looks like it's going to be great. Part of the training will be overdose prevention, signs and symptoms of overdose, how to administer Narcan, rescue breathing, and overdose prevention legal rights. So, and it was explained to us that even some children, like young adults, are interested in it because they know people in their family that they would like to be knowledgeable about how to administer Narcan. So that will be the 16th at 6:30 at Riverdale, and it's free.
Any other old or new business?
I have some. I wrote down a lot here for old business, but I think I'll just put that down as agenda items for the next B&G meeting. I do want to talk about some new business. And, you know, I'm careful what I say. You know, this has to do with security, being the chair of Buildings, Grounds, Security. I think that we were lucky, I think, was it a week or a week and a half ago, where we had some police activity on the school grounds, and we were very fortunate that it wasn't worse. The only thing I really wanted to discuss tonight in public is that the day of the events and the following days that have been since that event has been some, we've had some very serious discussions at the board with internally as well as externally with mayor and council and with the superintendent and the chief of police. Security is, especially at a time where drop-off and dismissal is a grave concern, and we're addressing it. You know, the details of all that obviously is not something that we're going to discuss here, but it was something that we noticed, and we took action right away. And the mayor and council was very responsive. They met with us. We met behind closed doors. We discussed a lot of things, and they all were in agreement. And from what we've heard from the superintendent, the chief of police was also very responsive, and we'll be putting things in place so that in the event that something were to happen, both preemptively and, post-event, we'll be better prepared.
Any other question, any other new business or old business? I had an interesting conversation with somebody this week, just to piggyback. You just reminded me what you said about lunch and how everything went so smooth and it was calm. I happened to have a conversation with a person that actually runs a program in this school and in other schools. And we were just talking, and I said, how are the kids in Oradell Public? And she said, very well behaved. And I asked her about the other schools, and she said, problems. I mean, she said, it is really amazing. And we noticed it with the Open Circle. Whatever our admins and our teachers are doing, people, when they come in this building, they do see it. Because this is somebody that does go to other schools, so I just thought that was an interesting conversation. And you just reminded me of that.
I'll piggyback on that. My son's better off now that he comes here. He comes home and he's nicer. I'm like, wow, this must work. So I'm an in of one, but I can tell you it's working, whatever you're doing.
Just wait till he's a teenager.
Oh, man.
Any other old or new business? So before we break, we do have to go into closed session. I want to wish everyone Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, because we will see everyone next year. And if someone would make a motion to go into closed session for security and personnel reasons?
So moved.
Second.
All right.
Get to talk today.
Taking up on all his seconds.
Yes.
This is fun, getting to talk.